Elena Cardone, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Really excited to have you on. Like I said earlier, we had Grant on a month ago. We had an awesome conversation, and now we're saving the best for last, right?
Hi, baby.
super, super excited to have you on. There's a lot of people who are very excited to hear about your story because, a lot of times we see people where they are now. You guys are doing so well. You're all over social media. You're having, doing amazing things, best-selling author, podcast host, you know, doing amazing things in business. But what I really love to show is maybe go back a little bit and tell us about your story a little bit, where you came from, and maybe paint a picture for us, kind of how you got to where you are today.
Oh man, yeah. It was an evolution.
Yeah.
Uh, I grew up in New Orleans, Louisiana, and I had a very good childhood. I mean, I didn't have too many major things. You know, uh, back in the day, the parents were a little more physical with the kids, but nothing horrible, nothing out of line. Um, I was reared really well. I was a happy child. And then at around, how old was I? 13, I think.
Yeah.
13 or maybe 14. My father woke me up in the middle of the night and said, Goldie's house is on fire. She was my best friend. And so I was kind of like, oh, still sleeping. And then he said, and Goldie and her mom are still in the house. And so I ran across the street and we were trying to put buckets of water and hoses and nothing was working. Then finally the firemen came, and unfortunately her and her mother perished that day. And even more unfortunately is I saw or witnessed when they recovered the body. So I had to see that at 14, my friend Goldie, and I just wasn't equipped with how to handle that trauma.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of turned to the world of drugs and excessive alcohol to escape that reality. And I feel like I went down a really wrong path of not caring, not wanting to live, breaking on the rules, being rebellious. I wasted many, many, many years dabbling in that world. A lot of things happen to you when you are in that world because there's so many accidents and other things happen. A number of other friends perished in car accidents, overdoses, falling off balconies because they were so drunk. And
Wow.
like when you're 17 years old and 9 of your friends have died, I finally had a wake up call at 17, and I decided, especially because every day I walked out of my house and would have to see Goldie's house, the shell of her house that remained. And, I could not get away from it. So at 17 years old, after experiencing that, I decided to go out to Los Angeles and try to become an actress, a model. I went out there and I wanted to clean up. I wanted to clean up my life a little bit. So I went to Los Angeles. I tried to become this independent, powerful, strong woman. I worked on and off for a number of years. I was very successful, then not successful, successful, not successful. But all the while, I was trying to be this independent, powerful woman, not letting a man in, not letting anybody in. It had to be all me, myself. And then I met Grant. I married him. And it wasn't until, and I still had that viewpoint. So for the first 4 or 5 years of our relationship, I was still this independent woman, not joined together as a teammate or operating in that manner. But when 2008, the crisis happened, I was pregnant with our first child. We were forced to confront the situation. And so it was at that point when I realized that men aren't having this conversation about being these independent men. They just kind of are, and they're willing to use anyone and anything, not in a bad way. That people mishear that word use,
Yeah.
but they're not having that conversation. So it was at that point I realized, I'm basically trying to be this independent woman for all the women around the world who I don't even know, and I don't even know if they care that I'm living my life this way. But I had to put all those voices aside, and I decided to have my first entrepreneurial moment and back up my man and support him, flow all of my assets behind him, and how we could build and recreate this life for ourselves because it was decimated. And so I kind of had to swallow that pill of, maybe I do need to depend on others to get to a higher level. And he depended on me, I depended on him. And it was at that time where the switch got flipped, and we both then went into high gear and really catapulted into the stratosphere of when we actually 100% supported each other with the common mission of where are we going and what are we doing and how do we operate to lift each other up rather than trying to be on our own, protecting ourselves even from each other. We were kind of battling each other rather than joining forces and figuring out how to like move each other up. So cut to now, 10 years later, that bet, trading in my career in order to trade up paid off. Grant is an amazing partner. And now you see what you see on social media. There was no social media back there when we went through sacrifice phase, when we couldn't give to our charities, when we didn't go on any vacations for 10 years, when we didn't go out to dinners, when if we had a party at our house, it was potluck, bring your own food. It was just sacrifice. We didn't care how we looked or if we looked cheap or whatever. It was just, we were in survival mode, but it paid off. And now we're doing really well. And we have statistics that back us. And we've learned, I've learned a lot on how to quantify this relationship aspect behind what it took to get there. And Grant has all the financial entrepreneurial expertise. So now we're at a new level where we even work even better together because now we both have something to bring to the table and offer people. We made a decision 10 years ago. If we ever were to make it out and live this life that we're living today, that we wouldn't close the curtains, that we would continue to be transparent to help all the people that came from similar backgrounds and like not nothing, because I've seen nothing. Bangladesh, the slums of Bangladesh. I didn't come from nothing. Yeah. I'm from America. I had a floor, a roof, and food. But for the sake of saying nothing, I came from nothing to something, know. Yeah. And so that's my life story. That's where we are now.
Yeah, you guys have an amazing dynamic partnership. Like for what we can see on social media and everything, I can really appreciate that, how you've been able to come together and you have your own identities, yet you still serve that same purpose. Yeah. And it's inspiring, but at the same time, it's challenging to find somebody that you can lock arms with and be partners like that, because everybody has their egos. They want to do this, they want to do that. And it's hard to kind of come together to have that one vision. I think a lot of people struggle with that.
It is hard. It is difficult. I didn't do it for the first 4 or 5 years of our relationship. I wasn't operating like this. I was, I've never been the person, because I was always an independent working as an actress since I was 17. So I always felt like guys hold me back. I kind of have a guy mentality on that. So I never wanted to be in a relationship. I never wanted to be married. I always thought they're going to hold me back in life. And so I always understood that. I've never told Grant not to work, but when we were first married, his recreational time, I wanted his recreational time, but he wanted to give his recreational time to his brother and play Xbox. I wanted to like murder him. I was like, I think I just made the biggest mistake of my life. I was used to being this gun-toting, because I shot shotguns at the time. I was ranked 10th in California. I was just used to being in a man's world. I wasn't used to like a guy kind of picking his brother over me. That was new to me. But it was at that time when I had to realize, look, either you're going to get a divorce, because that didn't work for me, because I was looking, or I could look on what I could take the responsibility for. And what I took responsibility for at that time was that I was looking to him to fulfill me. Yeah. And that's not fair. That's not fair to do to anyone, because even if he would have given me the time, it wouldn't have been enough, because I had given up my gun and the guys. I mean, I wasn't dating the guys, but I just thought it was inappropriate to be on a squad with guys where I'm traveling to Vegas and this and that and shooting in competitions. And, you know, when I'm trying to have a new family with a guy, you know,
Right. Of
but I
course.
had given that up. And then I expected him to give me all of the things that I had given up. So I had to look at, well, how do I fulfill myself in a non-FU way, but in a way to where I fulfill myself and then can give back to the relationship and also become an asset. So these things take time to figure out, and people have to evolve, and it takes really being honest and real with yourself. And then, you know, when we figured out who does what in the relationship, we had to figure out who has what strengths and what weaknesses, because I was a boss of me. I mean, I didn't get very
Yeah.
far, but I was the boss. I'm the chick. I was this independent woman who was never going to let a guy tell me what to do or control me or anything like that. But when it came to figuring out who does what in the relationship so we would stop fighting and get on the same team, I had to take that honesty pill again and say, you know what, he's way better at business. He knows all of that. So he's going to make the business financial decisions, because I had no track record and it wasn't good from what I had, you know. And then I'm going to do all of this and this and this because he's not so great in those areas.
Right.
And sometimes that is a hard pill to take and to figure out and get on the same page. It's not like we just magically were magical together. It's a created relationship. That's the thing. It's not a fairy tale. It's not like there's this perfect person out there. You kind of make yourself as perfect as you can be, and kind of, you know, where I'm at right now in my relationship with Grant is, if he's not giving me what I want, I try to take it upon myself and make it a game of, well, how can I get him to give me what I want in a behind the scenes kind of magical way?
Yeah.
Which is interesting. It gives me a game and a challenge without, you know, trying to go and yell at him and make him wrong, and which is my first instinct.
Yeah. No,
But it's
for
not
sure.
easy. My point is it's
Yeah.
not easy, and it's a constant evolution, and it's
Yeah.
a constant create, and never just gets on this place where you figure each other out and then it's perfect, and then you just get to go on easy streets.
Yeah. No, the fact that you have that self-awareness, though, most people don't have that. The fact that
Yeah.
all those things that are, you understand, you know, where you're at, where you were, where you've come from, what's going on, and you've been able to, you know, look at the situation. A lot of people don't have the self-awareness like that, you know, to
Yeah.
be able to understand where they are, right? And
Yeah.
that's the challenge. So what I want to do, I want to circle back for a second to, okay, so you were in a tough time, partying, drugs, all that, Hollywood. I know I've been through a lot of that myself as
All
well.
it was the cleanup phase.
Yeah. So, okay, but what were some of the things, like what was the turning point for you that allowed you to get out of that? You know, like where were you, you know, what was the point where did you start to go within some deep inner work? Like I would love to hear like how you sort of made that shift. Cause did you hit a rock bottom, or
No.
did something happen, or did it just, how did that work?
There was like different cycles in my life, you know. The first one being when I was 17 and I decided to move to Los Angeles at 17 and didn't know anyone. It was, I knew I had a decision to make. I knew I had a decision to make, which was either succumb and stay there and,
Yeah.
or stop wallowing in my self-pity and stop being a victim and see if, you know, I made a decision to live,
Right.
because before then I didn't care. That's why I was so reckless. I was angry at life that my friend that got taken away from me in such a vile manner, and it made me guilty that I was alive, and you know, I just went through weird
Yeah.
stuff, you know. And I just made a decision. I had this epiphany one day. It came from a dream, actually. And I had this epiphany one day that if my friend was alive, she would want me happy. She
Right.
wouldn't want me being miserable and messing up my life. And me doing that was like an FU to her. So I made a decision that if I was actually going to honor our friendship, I needed to go make something of myself and be happy and live my life. So that was decision number one. Then when I was in Los Angeles, and I had tamed down the drugs a lot, it was just recreational. Um, but I went to this acting school, and a lot of the people there that were stable with good careers and they were in good relationships, they were all Scientologists. And I was like terrified of that world. I thought, the people that I hung out with, we all called them cult members. I feel so bad. I called them cult members. I thought, if I went in once, they were going to track me and hound me for life. I had heard these horrible stories. But the people that I knew that were actually Scientologists were all like really cool. They were all really cool with me. They were different people. They were different with the way they thought. And they were stable. And I couldn't figure out why I couldn't get my life like that. So I went in there, I laid down all the rules. I was like, I'm only here. You can't have my number. You can't have my address, da, 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 da. And I'm out the second this doesn't work for me. And I don't want anyone calling me. And they're like, okay, they made jokes. They were like, and do you want to see like the children that we have chained in the basement, because I came up with the wildest stories. But they had something called the purification program, which was a detox that got the drugs out of the fatty tissues that are stored in your body. And so I went through this, and from the moment I finished that in 2000, it was like a 3-week kind of program that you went through every day. And after the 3 weeks, I had never craved drugs again in my entire life. I had never not been without drugs since the day I started on my 13th birthday until then. And from then, I haven't done a drug since. I haven't had the mental want or the physical desire. So I don't know what it was about that, but it worked for me. And I even gave birth to 2 children naturally because I didn't want to ingest any drug. And plus I wanted to experience what that was like.
Yeah.
As a purely kind of spiritual thing. And that was incredible. So that was some of the turning points. Then they had these number of other courses, competency, overcoming ups and downs in life, personal efficiency, finance courses, formulas for living, financial prosperity, all these courses that me as a Catholic, and I'm still Catholic, I've never been kicked out of Catholicism. They still have me. So I'm still Catholic, but I practice Scientology. Mm-hmm. But Catholicism didn't offer these courses that I started to take. I was a very bad student. The only thing that got me through school was my ability to memorize. So I would memorize everything for the test and I would pass with A's and B's, but I didn't actually know how to apply what I learned. And, as a script reader, when I had to study acting stuff, I'd have to go over it and I'd have all this mental anxiety, and there'd be table reads and I couldn't read out loud without stuttering and missing up the words. And so I found out that Scientology offered this course called the Basic Study Manual, and learning how to learn and study how to study. I had no one educated me on how to study, and that there are barriers to study. And once I had been through those courses, I can pick up anything in front of anyone and read anything perfectly now. It's like incredible. So I just had big wins and I just kept going until, now, which hasn't not stopped working for me. Wow.
It's fascinating.
And Catholicism didn't have that.
Right.
So my mom was concerned when I started these courses, because at the time when I started this purification thing, I was with this guy. I won't mention any names. He was this boyfriend I was with. We were living together, and he was really upset because 6 months after the Purify, I'm not drinking and I'm not doing drugs anymore. And I didn't tell him not to. I didn't care. Like, I was still like free-minded, and I was like, but I didn't want him to try to stop me. from doing what I wanted with my life. But he didn't like that. He lost his party girl. He was really upset. He was like calling me boring. He was just like trying to poke my buttons. You know, it was a very fragile time for me. I was in my late 20s. I had never been without drugs or alcohol. I'm trying to figure out how to exist in the world and how to find my courage and how to be extroverted without the crutch of a drug or an alcohol. So it was a very fragile time for me. I certainly wasn't telling anyone I was a Scientologist.
Yeah.
And yet he called my parents, my agents, my managers,
Wow.
called my friends in New Orleans, called everyone that I knew and told them that I had joined a cult. So my mom and dad, as you can imagine, were really freaked out. And I just told my mom the truth. I was like, look, this guy is really upset because I'm not doing X and drinking with him every single weekend. And he's upset about it. And I was like, you're either going to listen to him or me. And you didn't even know I did anything different in the last 6 months, except I happen to book 10 jobs and I'm doing really well right now. And I'm on a show and, you know, blah, 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 blah. And then my mom went to, because, you know, she's a diehard Catholic. And she went to the priest and told the priest that her daughter was now Scientologist. And the priest, he was above a priest. He was not a bishop, but anyway. And he said, oh, you don't have to worry about that religion. It's fine. And ever since then, I've had the blessing.
Wow. Fascinating. That's so many people probably had no idea about that. I love hearing that. I love that story because people have such judgments, right, about things, and they don't allow, and when they hear it from that angle, it opens up a lot of eyes because, you know, you have these misconceptions about things, right? You hear a word and you make these judgments. And also what I can really relate with you as well is when you get out of that drinking and party world, it's you're creating that new identity and you're like, well, who am I now? I'm not that person that like go out and do stupid things all the time. And when you're that person for so long, I know, because I was in the nightclubs, I was bartending for years. So that was my whole identity. And
me too.
then when you take that away, it's like, wait a minute, who do I become now?
That's right.
Who can I connect with?
And trying to figure out everything that I went through has gotten me to the point where I am now, because I've now been able to figure out, how do I break the rules and bend the rules and be rebellious and use all of that stuff that I needed before, but how do I find that in myself, but for good, not to where I'm going to hurt other people or, you know, for the sake of a laugh or the sake of an adrenaline high or something. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
of course.
How do I actually, that became the challenge and the new addiction. And so, yeah, it's now I've been, since December 31st, 1999 was the last time I've done a drug. And so now I have almost 20 years of being me. Like, so now it's not difficult anymore, but at that time it really was.
Right. So you talked about, actually somebody wanted me I have to ask you this specific thing. They asked me to because we're kind of in that area about manifesting, about having you talked about your perfect partner, about the things that you want to do. And I know a lot of people want to know this. How long did that happen when you started that before you met Grant, and how that sort of fell into place?
Well, okay. The story behind that was, I had, you know, and I do now love doing girly things now. But back then I loathed doing girly things.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, it used to stress me out so bad. But I got invited to this girls' night, and they wanted to light candles and like write down every list of and drink wine and write down all the list of everything you wanted in a man. And we put it in this copper wire thing and we wore it around our necks, and they said, be very specific. And I was rolling my eyes the entire time, but trying to be a good sport and like be a girl and like get it and like it. But the magical thing that happened to me that night was, as I wrote the list, I wrote so tiny because it had to fit in the little necklace
Yeah.
that ended up turning my neck green. Um, the thing that happened to me was, before that moment of that night, I never wanted to be married. And I know this is going to sound horrible, but I just could never imagine that I could be with one guy for the rest of my life. Like,
Yeah.
how boring. Like, I
Yeah.
need
Yeah.
action. I
That's
don't like sitting still. I don't like boring people. And I wrote this list and I thought to myself, well, if this guy existed, I could be with that guy for the rest of my life, but that guy's probably not real.
yeah.
And the other thing that happened to me was, I thought, okay, well, if this guy did exist and this guy wrote a list of his perfect woman, what would be on that list? And so I turned around and started writing everything that he wanted on the list. And
Huh.
it was a huge eye opener for me, because that's when I realized I was never going to find this guy, because I was never going to show up in his life, because because what guy would want to be with a girl that never wanted to settle down? And you know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
I had to write like, wants marriage and children, because that's the kind of guy I would want, not a player, you know? I
Yeah.
mean, I could do that on my own.
Yeah.
Raquel looked
That's
at me like,
yeah.
how dare you? But you know what I mean? So I was like, well, how do I get to myself? How do I get to, doesn't do drugs, doesn't drink alcohol, like fun, like, so I had to then work on myself, and I started working on myself immediately, because I was like, I'm never going to show up in this guy's world. And right after I wrote the list, probably within a month, I met Grant. But I still hadn't done enough work on myself to where he didn't show up, because I made one mistake. Out of over 100 items that I wrote on the list, the first two things, and the only two things that Grant is not, was the first two things that I wrote on the list, which was 6'2" and green eyes.
Huh.
So I never even saw him, because I thought 6'2" and green eyes. I cut myself out.
Interesting.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I only put 6'2" because, again, I'm tall, and other guys that I had dated in the past were like, do you have to wear your heels? And they made me feel big. As a woman, I want to feel dainty. I want to feel little. I don't want to, like, I don't want to go, I want like a guy that makes me feel dainty.
Yeah. Of course.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Of
Well,
course.
it wasn't even my consideration. Like, it's not even important to me. Like, Grant is shorter than me, but I don't even think of that, because he's such a ginormous being, and he's never made me feel, tried to hold me, like make me smaller.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So it
Of
doesn't even
course.
occur to me. People say, wow, I didn't know Grant was short. And like when they say it, it like rattles me, because I forget until someone reminds me.
Right. No, I wanted to bring that up because it's so important, because so many people are trying to find that person to fill the void that they don't have. Like they're trying to seek, yet they're not willing to do the work on themselves. Right.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and that's why I love talking about this, because it's important to really understand that you searching for that person is never going to give you the thing. You know, it's like, or whatever it is, that it's got to come within. You got to love yourself, and you got to, as cheesy as that sounds,
Oh,
that's
it's so true.
right. And that's why I think manifesting, and I've gotten into this a lot more. That's why I wanted to dive in, like really honing in on what it is you want in life, instead of just thinking about it, getting it down on paper, you know, and not just for a partner, but other like goals in life. But but some people find it so hard. And when you really try and go, all right, I want this, I'm going to put this on paper, it becomes a challenge, a lot harder than just thinking about it, right? So how important is it that people start to do that for building their goals and their dreams?
It's really important, because it goes back to what you said earlier about the awareness.
Yeah.
Awareness. You have to raise your awareness. You have to learn how to observe and be aware. And so that is one tool to help you start being aware, is like, well, what is it that I even want?
Yeah.
And how do I get that? And how do I make myself better to receive that? So you have to get clear. If you don't have a target, the chances are you're not going to hit the target.
Yeah.
You can aim blindly or just start shooting and hope for the best, but really figure out what it is that you want, and start thinking honestly, well, what am I doing to get that?
Yeah. No, for sure.
know?
Yeah, like a roadmap, because it's crazy if you don't have an idea of where you're going. How are you going to get there? It's like it's the old days when you didn't have a map. How where like you know what I mean? Or even GPS. You can't get to a city if you don't know where you're going, right?
Totally,
Like
totally. So, I mean, I'm very strategic with everything
yeah,
that I do now, even more so than ever before.
interesting. Yeah. What okay, so now, you guys are in the social media light a lot, right? You share a lot of things. You're very transparent, and I can really appreciate that. But does it ever get challenging feeling like you're on all the time? Because even myself, I don't do nearly as much content as you guys do at times. And it's like, and it's, how does that feel for you? Have you gotten better at kind of that style, that lifestyle, or does that become its own challenge on certain days?
Yeah, certain days it is a challenge because you don't feel like doing something, or it takes a lot of energy sometimes from morning till night, day after day after day, to be in front of people, and then people come to you, and to
Yeah.
have that constant high energy. And it is challenging sometimes, but I go back to being connected to my purpose.
Right.
And my purpose is that I want to connect, and I want 7 billion people to know who we are, and I want to help people, and that is my game. That's my game.
Mm.
So, and those times, it's not how you feel. It doesn't. I ignore my feelings a lot. I feel. I feel
Yeah.
people rely too much on their feelings to dictate what they're going to do in their life, rather than using discipline or going for the main goal or the big purpose, and suffering through it. Sometimes what I
Right.
do, I love, and ultimately, when I in the end, I'm energized by people. I'm energized even more so in the aftermath. And I really only get tired or don't want to do it when I feel like I have a failed purpose, or I'm not doing enough. If I'm not doing enough, it makes me tired. When I stop is when I get tired. So, it's I just do it anyway because my
Yeah.
purpose is so big. I'm so connected to my purpose in life, and what I'm living for, and the legacy that I want to leave, and the difference in people's lives that I want to make. And it's so absurd to think that little old me from New Orleans can do that, but I hang on to that idea that maybe I really can, and
Right.
that I don't care how I feel. I look at, well, do I have a product to exchange with someone else? And maybe, just maybe, can I just make a difference in one person's life and help change the trajectory of their life? And that gets me going every time. I'm like, okay, I'm good.
Yeah. Is there certain
It's,
things that you do to get in the morning to prime up? Like what are some things that are non-negotiables for you?
I
When
train when I'm in Miami. I train every
yeah, you're a
single.
boxer, right? I've seen you boxing.
I don't know what I am. I don't even
It's
know.
awesome.
Like, I feel so ridiculous every day. He wants me to shadow box. I'm a year and a half into this thing. I
Awesome.
still feel ridiculous. I He's like, natural, natural. I'm like, no, you don't understand. Nothing about this is natural. But I love it, and it helps my mind and my confidence, and being able to make my body get more coordinated and get stronger, and actually taking control of something that is not natural, and I work on it. Then I go, wow, I can bend the universe to my
Yeah.
will. If I can do this with my physical body, what can I do in the physical? What else can I do? I can do things that I didn't think I could do. It raises competency, and it makes me feel proud. And then when I walk in front of 12,000 people and have to deliver a speech, yes, I still get nervous, but I still get nervous to spar with a guy who can give me a black eye.
Yeah.
But I do it anyway because I have more confidence. I'm like, okay, well, speaking to 12,000 people, no one's hitting me back. It's got to be easier than sparring every day.
Right.
It's just, I love it. So that's a non-negotiable to me. It's something that shuts my brain off too. Like, I
Yeah.
can't think
You're
about
in a
anything
that mindful activity is really good to be able to just focus for a bit
else.
on.
Focus. And I don't have, like, you know, all the windows like in your computer that are all open in my mind going,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. It's crazy because we're always, you know, there's always screens, there's always stuff going on. And it's so nice to actually do a real physical activity or something that it's just you're just honed in on it.
I
You know,
know. It
it's,
is my time.
yeah.
I love,
Do you do any breath work, meditation, anything like that?
I don't do meditation.
No,
That is not my thing. I
no.
understand that that helps people,
Yeah. Fair
and
enough.
I will not knock anything that helps people, but that is not my
Not
thing.
your thing.
No. But someone was going to teach me how to breathe by some guy. They told me this morning. I was like, yeah, okay, teach
Yeah.
me. I like that, you know. I could be down for that.
Of course, that's the beautiful thing is like everybody's got their journeys and their
Yeah.
things they do and what they don't. Not everything works for everybody,
No, we're not
right?
cookie cutter.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
for sure. So as far as what you've seen and people that you talk to, you know, who you coach or who you come across, what do you think is the main reason why people in business may fail or not? Like, what is the thing? Is it mindset? Is it work ethic? Is it like what do you see as being the common
Well,
thing?
sometimes it's just pure education.
Yeah.
You know, like they just don't know. You have to know, you know, and able to control and be responsible for something. You
Right.
have to have the correct knowledge. You know, they say knowledge is power. Well, what if you have the wrong knowledge?
True.
You know what I'm saying? So
Right.
there's a lot of people who aren't interested in investing in themselves to either go to the 10X Growth Con or be around people that have the statistics, not just the self-proclaimed experts, but the real statistics, and study people or courses or read books. Or some people just want easy street. You know, they don't learn how to sell or learn how to market or do it anyway. I don't like social media. Well, who cares? It's not for you. You're doing it for them. You're
Yeah.
doing it to reach the people. You're doing it, you know, it's not who you know, it's who knows you. It's like Grant says, it's best known product wins, not best product. Look, this
Yeah.
BCAA that I drink, I
Yeah.
guarantee you is better than Coca-Cola.
Yeah.
Who do you think makes more money and sells more
Yeah.
drinks a day?
Yeah.
Because
Cool.
everyone knows Coca-Cola. So my point is I think a lot of people don't educate themselves enough and go into it blindly and don't want to do the work. That's a big part of it. And then mindset certainly is a big part of it.
Mm.
And, you know, like for instance, I'll take business out of it and turn it into relationships. Like when I had the mindset that all relationships hold me back, I actually picked relationships to where I would make myself right about that statement, and they all held me back. Until one day I went, well, what if there was a guy that could actually lift me up? Like if I could only hit here in my life and that was the highest I could go, but being with a guy the right guy could actually bring me from here to here. Like I'm interested in that person. I'm
Yeah.
interested in heightened success. And at the time, it seemed impossible. I didn't believe it, but I said, Elena, just be open to the possibility that that could be true. And then that's where, you know, I am today with Grant and heightened success and on both sides. So it's the same thing in business. I don't know what the considerations would be in the business, but if you had a consideration that it's difficult or customers are bad or not reliable or whatever the things that you tell yourself is the things that you're going to attract to make yourself right about that. That if you just opened your mind that, oh no, this could actually benefit me, or, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Make it about them instead of about themselves and their feelings. It's like, well, it's for them. Like this is for the service that you're giving to people. So many people get caught up in their own self, their own feelings that like you said, I'm tired or whatever, and they don't want to show up. But it's
Yeah.
like, if you don't show up, then other people suffer because they're not getting your gift. You know,
That's,
they're
and Grant has a thing. He says the number one rule to success is always show up.
hey, how's it going, man?
Good, brother. Good. Huh?
That's awesome.
I just flipped him a bird. If you want to know what transparency
Oh,
is.
I thought he was going to join us.
No, he walked out. He's like, "Where's my
Yeah.
first coming?" And I put them all. I
That's
was
awesome.
like, "Get out of here."
That's awesome. Well, Elena, I really appreciate you coming on and hanging out and chatting. You know, because you got such a valuable piece of your guys' puzzle that everybody can see and watch. And I love hearing both sides and just seeing what you guys can create. And it's inspiring. You have such a beautiful family.
We do.
And the way you've been able to create that, and the way, even living that lifestyle that you live, and being able to keep things tight, and it's awesome to see. So,
Thank you. I appreciate that. And yeah, I definitely don't want to paint the picture that we are perfect, because I always say in the beginning of every G&E show, we're not perfect, but we're figuring it out. It continues every day. We have our own challenges that we don't discuss until we've gotten through it. And then we'll open it up and discuss things, usually on the G&E show. But it's not always perfect. It is hard. We deal with a lot of things come at us. We're both very strong-minded people. We're constantly having to figure out how to work with each other. And, so it's not always easy, but the rewards are so massive and so big. And there is so much love and so much trust between us that it's catapulted us into the relationship that we do have. But it's not always fairy tales. I legitimately flipped them off for real. I was like this.
Yeah, but that's the thing, is it's not always, and that's where you guys are transparent, and it's
True.
You gotta. I mean, it's funny because there's never a perfect relationship. Like, we're all gonna be like swear at each other, and that's okay, because
that is okay. That is okay, as long as Grant and I have this 95-5 rule.
Yeah.
As long as we're good 95% of the time, we can deal with the 5%.
I love it. That's awesome. Where can we find you? What exciting things can everybody go and check you out for right now?
Come on, you got, darling. Okay, so I do a free networking for 10X ladies.
Perfect.
And it's Wednesday night, tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can sign up and register at 10xladies.com/network. And so I've built this over 2,500, I don't know, maybe we're getting to 3,000, whatever, in a very short amount of time, this global network of 10X women from around the world, where we can actually use each other, help each other, and blah, 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 blah. So sign up for that. I have the 10X Ladies Seminar coming up in February on the back end of 10X Growth Con. If you want a ticket to that, amazing women are going to be on the panel. Go to 10xladies.com. I've got GrowthCon. If you want to just come to GrowthCon, go to 10xgrowthcon.com. If you want my book, it's free. Go to ElenaCardone.com/empire. It's free. It makes great Christmas gifts, Hanukkah gifts,
It does.
Kwanzaa gifts. Did I leave anyone out? And then what else? That's it, right? That's awesome. A lot, right?
That's good.
And I could go on. I have built an Empire online course. You could go to ElenaCardone.com/pre-order to get my online course if you want to go through the whole online course on how to build an empire, how to have it all. That's just a little something.
Well, it's great, because hearing that, people listening, they may not know. So it's good that you said that. I try and get everybody to say as much as you can, so that, because you never know what somebody listening needs or doesn't know of.
I have a show that I do called Women in Power. It's a podcast. Yeah. I interview women in power from all over the world and every place that I've been. So Women in Power, if they want to do that, that's on iTunes. You just go to iTunes /Elena Cardone. And then I do the G&E show with Grant Cardone.
Busy.
Show. I mean, we don't stop around here.
It's awesome. That's awesome. Again, thank you very much. There's one last question I always end. This is the one staple question I have. I leave the easy one for last.
Oh, good. It's easy. I like that.
Out of all the challenges, adversities that you've gone through in your life, what is one lesson? I know we probably discussed it, but what is one lesson that adversity itself has taught you?
It's taught me to become the best friend to myself. And I only recently learned this a few years ago. I had a realization that I'm actually a very good friend to other people, But what I would do to myself, I would never do to my friends. And then I learned how to become a friend to myself, which means I will hold myself accountable. I will figure out how to not make the mistake again. But I'm done beating myself up. I'm done with invalidation. And I just, when I recognize that, I try to knock it off, because it serves no purpose to be so brutal on yourself. And I think that's just the biggest thing, is just forgive yourself, move on, love yourself. I don't know why that was so hard for me to do, because clearly I'm an awesome person, but no, that was the big game changer for me.
Awesome. Well said. Some people take a little while to think of that last one. You're like, boom, I got it. You had it right away.
because it's easy.
Yeah.
That one just recently hit me, and I was like, okay,
yeah,
I'm done with that game. That game's old. I played it for 40 years. I'm done. Like I'm not going forward with that one anymore. You know, I don't need to be an enemy to myself. I got too many now. Yeah. I got too many enemies I'm trying to fight. I'm gonna be
because now you're getting so popular, right? Like Grant says, if nobody hates you, nobody knows who you are, right?
That's right. I'm team Elena now. Let's go.
Awesome. Elena, thanks so much. This was so much fun. I really appreciate you.
Thank you. I appreciate you. Thanks for having me on your show.
Oh, it was an absolute honor. Elena Cardone, everybody.